The restaurant manager grabbed my hand just as I turned to retrieve my forgotten purse. His fingers tightened around my wrist, not aggressive, but urgent. He pulled me into his office, locked the door behind us, and whispered with a face drained of color, "Please be strong, ma'am. Do not scream or faint after you see the footage." Those words emptied the air from my lungs. My name is Claire Whitman. I am a business owner, the sole heir to a logistics company my father built over 3 decades. I am practical by nature. I trust facts, not drama. I have negotiated hostile contracts without raising my voice, but nothing prepared me for what I saw that night. Earlier, I had been celebrating my 3rd wedding anniversary in a high-end restaurant overlooking the city. The lights were warm, the atmosphere calm. It felt like a reward for surviving a difficult year. Beside me sat my husband, Daniel Whitman. Attentive, well-spoken. The man everyone described as steady and reliable. Across from us sat his mother, Eleanor Whitman, elegant and commanding, and Brooke Miller, the young woman Daniel had introduced years ago as a foster sister from his childhood. That night, Daniel held my hand and asked about my health. I had been dealing with headaches and poor sleep for weeks. Eleanor said it was stress. Brooke agreed and smiled sympathetically. They told me to rest more, to let Daniel take care of things, to trust them. I did. When I realized I had left my purse behind and decided to return alone, I thought it was nothing more than a minor inconvenience. Standing in that locked office staring at the security monitors, I learned the truth. Because what the camera revealed was not a mistake. It was a plan. And every person involved was someone I loved. Just an hour earlier, everything had looked exactly the way a happy marriage was supposed to look. The restaurant was quiet in the way expensive places often are. Soft music played in the background. Candlelight reflected off polished glass and white tablecloths. Outside the windows, the city lights stretched endlessly, distant and harmless. We sat at a round table tucked away from the crowd. Daniel sat close to me, his arm resting lightly against mine. When the food arrived, he cut my steak into small pieces without being asked. It was a habit that made people smile when they noticed. It looked caring, thoughtful. Eleanor watched us with a satisfied expression. Her posture was perfect, her words chosen carefully. She complimented me on how well I managed the company and said Daniel was lucky to have such a capable wife. The praise felt warm, but it lingered strangely, like it was meant to be repeated later. Brooke sat beside her, pouring wine into my glass whenever it dipped too low. She asked gentle questions about my work and my health. She tilted her head when she listened, as if deeply concerned, but her eyes were always alert, always measuring. Daniel asked if I felt better lately. I said some days were good, some not. He squeezed my hand and told me I worked too hard. Eleanor agreed and said no business was worth losing your peace of mind. Brooke nodded in agreement. People often say love feels safe. What they do not tell you is that manipulation often wears the same face as care. That night, I felt grateful. I felt supported. I believed I was surrounded by people who wanted the best for me. When the bill arrived, Daniel paid immediately. He insisted, saying it was his role as a husband. I found it endearing, even though my income far exceeded his. Looking back now, I understand something clearly. That dinner was not spontaneous. Every smile, every word, every gesture had been rehearsed. And I was the only one at the table who did not know the ending. The cool night air brushed against my face as we stepped out of the restaurant. The city felt louder at street level, alive with traffic and movement. Daniel slipped his jacket over my shoulders, shielding me from the chill without a word. Halfway to the car, my hand reached down instinctively. My purse was gone. I stopped walking and checked again, faster this time. Panic rose in my chest. Inside that purse were my phone, my wallet, and documents I never left unattended. I told Daniel what had happened. He reacted immediately. He said not to worry. He said we would go back. His voice was calm, almost rehearsed. He pulled the car over within seconds. I glanced at Eleanor in the back seat. She looked tired, her expression tight with impatience. I felt embarrassed, careless. I did not want to inconvenience her. So I made a decision that would change everything. I told Daniel I would go back alone. I said the restaurant was close and safe. I said he should take his mother home and I would meet him later. Daniel hesitated just long enough to seem concerned. Then he agreed. He ordered a ride share for me himself and kissed my forehead before I got in the car. As the car pulled away, I looked back through the window. Daniel stood on the curb, perfectly still, watching me leave. His face was unreadable under the streetlight. In the quiet of the ride back, I scolded myself for being careless. Everyone forgets things sometimes. I told myself I was lucky to have such a considerate husband. The car stopped in front of the restaurant. The lights inside were dimmer now. Closing time was near. I stepped out, thinking I was walking back to retrieve a forgotten purse. I had no idea I was walking straight into the moment that would expose the truth about my marriage. I had barely crossed the entrance when a man stepped directly into my path. It was Samuel Brooks, the restaurant manager. Earlier that evening, he had greeted us with a polite smile and a practiced welcome. Now his expression was different. His face was pale, his jaw tight, his eyes held a seriousness that made my stomach drop. Before I could ask about my purse, he gently but firmly took hold of my arm. "Please do not be alarmed," he said quietly, "but I need you to come with me right now." I tried to pull away. I asked what was wrong. He did not answer. Instead, he guided me toward a door beside the reception desk marked Manager Office. Something in his tone told me this was not a request. Inside, the room was small and orderly. A desk, filling cabinets, and along one wall, several security monitors displaying different angles of the dining room. Samuel closed the door and locked it. The sound of the lock echoed louder than it should have. He turned to face me and took a slow breath, as if choosing his words carefully. "What I am about to show you will be upsetting," he said. "I need you to remain seated and stay calm." My heart began to race. I asked again about my purse. He shook his head. "This is about your table." He pointed to the largest monitor. On the screen was a clear overhead view of the corner, where we had been sitting less than 30 minutes earlier. Table 12. I saw myself on the screen. I saw Daniel. I saw Eleanor and Brooke. A timestamp appeared in the corner, marking the exact moment I had stood up and walked toward the restroom. Samuel explained that reviewing footage was part of his nightly routine, but something about our table had caught his attention, something that did not feel right. He rewound the video slightly, then paused. "Please be strong," he said softly. "What you are about to see was done on purpose." My chest tightened as he pressed play. At that moment, I realized this was not about a forgotten purse. It was about something deliberate. Something hidden. And whatever appeared on that screen was already powerful enough to make a grown man lock his office door to protect me. The video played without mercy. On the screen, I watched myself stand up and leave the table. My chair sat empty. My purse remained behind. For a brief moment, everything looked normal. Then Daniel changed. The warmth fell from his face. He scanned the room, not like a man waiting for a server, but like someone checking for witnesses. His hand reached for my purse with practiced ease. He opened it. His fingers went straight to the inner pocket and pulled out a small white bottle. My supplement bottle. The one I took every night because my doctor said it would help with the dizziness. I felt the room tilt. Daniel unscrewed the lid and poured the capsules into a folded napkin resting on his lap. He folded it carefully and slipped it into his jacket pocket. Then he reached into his pants pocket and removed a small clear bag. Inside were pills nearly identical in shape and color. He poured them into the empty bottle, shook it once, and returned it to my purse in the exact same place. Across the table, Eleanor watched. She did not look shocked. She did not stop him. She laughed softly, then tilted her head in mocked confusion, waving her hands as if imitating someone who had lost their mind. Brooke leaned in close to Daniel. She smiled. She patted his shoulder. They raised their glasses. They toasted. The screen went dark. I grabbed the edge of the desk to keep myself upright. Samuel placed another bottle on the desk, my real supplements. He explained that he had recovered them from the trash after seeing Daniel enter the restroom before leaving. Then he spoke carefully, without fear or exaggeration. Those pills were not vitamins. They were illegal psychotropic medication. Taken regularly, they could cause confusion, paranoia, memory loss, and emotional instability. Symptoms that looked exactly like mental illness. The goal was not to harm me physically. It was to make me look unfit, unreliable, replaceable. My phone vibrated on the desk. Daniel was calling. In that moment, I understood the plan completely. And I understood something else just as clearly. If I wanted to survive this, I could not react. I would have to outthink them. I answered Daniel's call with a steady voice and told him I had my purse. I said the manager had found it near the host stand. I thanked him for worrying and told him I was heading home. When I ended the call, my hands were shaking, but my face was calm. Samuel handed me my purse and reminded me gently to keep both bottles, one for evidence, one for appearances. Then he said something that stayed with me. "Silence is not weakness," he said. "It is protection." The ride home felt longer than usual. The familiar streets looked different now, sharper, less forgiving. When I reached our house, I paused at the door and took a breath before stepping inside. Daniel greeted me with a smile that would have comforted me hours earlier. He hugged me tightly and asked if I felt better. I nodded and said I was tired. On the coffee table sat a glass of water and the same white bottle I had just seen on the screen. Daniel shook one pill into his palm and held it out to me. He said it would help me sleep, that he just wanted me well. I placed the pill in my mouth and pretended to swallow, hiding it under my tongue as I drank the water. Daniel watched closely. When he was satisfied, he kissed my forehead and told me to rest. In the bathroom, I disposed of the pill and stared at my reflection. My heart was racing, but my mind was clear. This house was no longer safe. From that moment on, I stopped reacting and started observing. Every word, every movement, every smile. If they believed I was losing control, I would let them. Because people who think they are winning make mistakes. And I needed them to make one. I went to bed early that night and pretended to fall asleep. Daniel came in later, kissed my forehead, and whispered good night like nothing had changed. I waited until the house settled into silence before I moved. For weeks I had been waking up to whispers, soft voices calling my name, sounds that felt real enough to frighten me but faint enough to doubt. Every time I mentioned it, Daniel and Eleanor exchanged looks and told me stress could do strange things to the mind. I turned on my phone flashlight and began to search the bedroom. Under the bed, inside the closet, along the vents, nothing. Then my eyes stopped on the framed artwork across from the bed, a large decorative piece Eleanor had given me 2 months earlier. I lifted it carefully from the wall. Behind the frame was a small black speaker taped neatly to the wood. A faint red light blinked slowly. My chest tightened. The whispers were not in my head. I photographed the device and placed the frame back exactly as it had been. As I turned away, I heard voices downstairs. I moved quietly toward the staircase and listened from behind the hallway wall. Daniel and Brooke were sitting close together on the couch. Too close. Her head rested against his shoulder. His hand moved through her hair with ease and familiarity. There was no trace of family in the way they touched. Daniel laughed and said the pills were working. He said the board meeting would finish everything. That after tomorrow, I would be out of the way. Brooke spoke softly, almost excited. She said she was tired of pretending, tired of smiling at me. She talked about moving into the house properly and traveling with my money once Daniel had control. I recorded every word. In that moment, the truth settled completely. This was not a misunderstanding. This was not desperation. This was entitlement. They believed my life belonged to them. I returned to bed before they noticed I was gone. I lay there staring at the ceiling until morning light crept through the curtains. I did not cry. Because once you understand that no one in the room is on your side, something changes. You stop trying to be understood, and you start preparing to win. Morning arrived quietly. I moved slowly, letting my shoulders sag, letting my eyes look unfocused. Daniel watched me closely as he drank his coffee. I complained of a heavy head and poor sleep. He nodded with concern that did not reach his eyes. When Daniel and Eleanor finally left the house to run errands, I acted quickly. I called Andrew Collins. Andrew had been my father's attorney for years, careful, ethical, the kind of man who asked hard questions and wrote everything down. When I told him I needed him at my house immediately, and that my safety depended on it, he did not hesitate. He arrived through the back entrance within half an hour. I showed him the photos of the pills, the hidden speaker, the recording of Daniel and Brooke. Andrew listened without interrupting, his expression tightening with every piece of evidence. Then we went to Daniel's office. The door was locked, as always. I reached into the ceramic pot in the corner of the hallway and pulled out the spare key I had once seen Daniel hide there. The lock clicked open. Inside the room sat a small safe. I remembered the code. Eleanor's birthday. It opened. Inside were neatly stacked documents, a draft petition requesting legal control over my affairs, a forged psychiatric evaluation describing paranoia and hallucinations, bank statements showing large transfers from my company to accounts in Eleanor's and Brooke's names, luxury purchases labeled as business expenses. Then Andrew found a passport. Brooke Miller was not her real name. The passport showed a different surname. Tucked inside was a photograph of a civil marriage ceremony, Daniel and Brooke, years before he married me. I felt cold but steady. This was not a recent betrayal. It was a long-planned deception. Andrew photographed everything and secured several originals in his briefcase. Then we heard a car pull into the driveway. Daniel was back early. Andrew hid in the closet just as the office door opened. I turned, let my posture collapse, and told Daniel the voices told me to come here. His suspicion melted into satisfaction. And in that moment I knew the trap was fully set. The drive to the office felt longer than usual. I leaned against the window, letting my eyes drift in and out of focus, playing the part Daniel expected me to play. He held my hand tightly, as if guiding someone fragile through traffic, and reminded me that I did not need to speak during the meeting. "Just sit and listen," he said softly. "I will take care of everything." Hudson Tower rose above us, all glass and steel. My father's name was etched into its foundation. Seeing it again steadied me. Inside the executive elevator, Daniel explained that a doctor would be present in case I felt overwhelmed. He said it kindly, but the message was clear. If I stepped out of line, someone would step in. The boardroom was already full when we arrived. Faces turned toward me as I entered. Some showed concern. Others showed doubt. I could feel the weight of rumors that had been spreading quietly for weeks. Daniel guided me to the chair at the head of the table, then took the seat beside me. He began the meeting calmly. He spoke about responsibility, about protecting the company from risk. Then, slowly, he shifted the focus to me. He told the room that my health had been declining, that I was confused, unstable, and no longer capable of leading. Documents were passed around, medical reports, legal drafts, everything prepared in advance. A man in a white coat stood near the wall, watching me carefully. Daniel turned to me and asked if I wanted to say anything. His eyes warned me not to. I lowered my head and remained silent. The tension in the room thickened. Board members whispered among themselves. Daniel pressed on, explaining that a temporary transfer of authority would be best for everyone involved. This was the moment he had been waiting for. What he did not know was that every word he spoke was tightening the rope around his own future. Because the trap was not meant for me. It was meant for him. And the moment he reached for my voice would be the moment everything unraveled. I lifted my head slowly and looked around the room. The silence stretched. Daniel shifted in his chair, impatient now, confident that my hesitation meant surrender. I stood. The movement alone startled everyone. My back straightened. The tremor in my hands disappeared. When I spoke, my voice was steady and clear. "I am not unwell," I said, "and I am not confused." Daniel froze. He told the room this was exactly what he feared. He gestured toward the doctor and said I was having an episode. That was when the boardroom doors opened. Andrew Collins walked in first. Behind him were two uniformed officers, and just behind them stood Samuel Brooks, the restaurant manager. The room erupted into confusion. I did not raise my voice. I told the board that my husband had been secretly drugging me with illegal psychotropic medication to create the appearance of mental instability, that the goal was to gain legal control over my company and assets. Daniel shouted that it was a lie. He accused me of manipulation. He claimed the evidence was fabricated. Andrew pressed a button on the laptop. The security footage filled the screen. Every movement was clear. Daniel opening my purse, replacing the pills, Eleanor laughing, Brooke watching proudly. Gasps rippled through the room. Then the audio recording played, Daniel's voice, Brooke's voice, talking about sending me away and spending my money. Daniel tried to stand. The officer stopped him. Andrew presented the financial records next: transfers, forged approvals, hidden purchases. Finally, the photograph appeared, a wedding photo dated years before mine. Daniel collapsed into his chair. The doctor was escorted out. Brooke broke down crying. Eleanor was silent, her face pale. The board voted immediately. Daniel was removed from all authority. As the officers placed him in handcuffs, he looked at me with disbelief. I met his gaze calmly. In that moment, I did not feel victorious. I felt free. Because the story he had written for me had ended. And the truth had spoken instead. The boardroom slowly emptied after Daniel was led away. Conversations dropped to whispers. Some people avoided my eyes, others approached quietly to apologize for doubting me. I accepted it without anger. Fear makes people silent. I understood that now. Within hours, emergency measures were in place. Daniel's access to the company was revoked. Accounts were frozen. An independent audit was ordered. The doctor was reported. Brooke was detained for questioning. Eleanor was arrested later that evening after additional evidence was recovered from the house. I went home alone that night. For the first time in months, the house was silent. No whispers in the walls. No footsteps in the hallway. No performance. I slept without medication and woke up without fear. In the weeks that followed, I focused on healing. Medical checkups confirmed what I already knew. My mind was clear. Therapy helped me process the betrayal. Strength returned slowly, but it returned honestly. The company stabilized. Transparency replaced secrecy. Trust was rebuilt one decision at a time. Here is what I learned. When someone repeatedly tells you that you are confused, fragile, or incapable, pause. Especially if they benefit from your silence. Control often hides behind concern. Do not confront without proof. Do not explain yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Find one honest ally. Document everything. If this story resonated with you, like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and tell me in the comments where you are watching from. Subscribe to The Art of Revenge. Because sometimes the strongest revenge is not destruction. It is clarity. And walking away with yourself intact.